You're still watching TVC Breakfast. Now, President Bola Tinubu has ordered the deployment of an army battalion to Kaiama local government area of Kwara State after suspected terrorists killed villagers in Woro and nearby Nuku communities. Now, the troops are to lead Operation Savannah Shield to stop the attacks and protect affected communities. In a statement by his spokesman, Bayo Ononuga, the president condemned the killings, describing them as barbaric, and expressed anger that residents were targeted for rejecting extremist doctrines. He also praised the communities for resisting attempts to establish terrorist strongholds. The president called for coordination between federal and state agencies to support victims and ensure the attackers are brought to justice. Joining us via Zoom is Managing Director, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, Kabiru Adamu. Good morning, Mr. Kabiru. How are you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. This is a very worrisome issue, a very concerning issue. We all saw what happened in Kwara, a very sad one. We've been talking about it. The media has been throwing more light, on it. We've seen that the president has made bold statements. He's ordered that the people that, caused this harm should definitely be brought to book. We've also seen that we're getting intelligence. We've seen that, Turkey wants to work with us. The U.S. wants to work with us. We're getting global attention. But the question is, we hear that these people were given strange doctrines. The question is, when do we finally, end this terrorism? When do we finally wake up in Nigeria that, a Nigeria that is peaceful, a Nigeria that the people in the rural areas are safe? Because at the end of the day, we say it's not just saving territory. We're also saving, the choices and, the religion of the people. What they want to do is what they want to do. They shouldn't be forced to do strange things that they do not want to do. So I'm just throwing this question to you, what do you think is the way forward? Also working with the intelligence that we'll be getting from Turkey and the U.S.
Well, we have a national counterterrorism fully the provisions of that counterterrorism strategy. The strategy is supposed to allow us to identify when groups like the ones that did the bestial acts in Kwara State, emerge. Is supposed to help us identify them, forestall their activities, take steps to punish them. Now, unfortunately, almost 10 years into the production of that document, it was introduced, if I remember well, in 2016. The first one was introduced in 2014, and then it was revised in 2016. And recently, a roadmap, a 5-year roadmap from 2025 to, I guess, 2029 or 2030 was introduced last year. The challenge is that we don't lack the instruments. We have the instruments, and anyone who picks that instrument will be happy about it. But unfortunately, we're not implementing the provisions of that instrument. And I think part of the challenge is we're not giving the instrument enough recognition. Governors don't really know about it. Of course, we don't even yet have local governments. Those aspects that are supposed to address the root causes of terrorism, only the federal government appears to be working on them. And given that we have 36 states, 774 local governments, over 8,000 wards in the country with a landmass of over 900,000, then frankly, there's very little the federal government can do. And this is why we're where we are. To add to this is the very reactive approach that we seem to have. We wait until these things happen, and then we attempt to take measures. The president has ordered a battalion. A new military operation has emerged. This is the thing we've done in other locations. In Borno State, we did the same thing. An operation has been ongoing now for almost 12, 13 years. In the Northwest, when this issue started, we did the same thing. We started Operation Fansanyama. And now in the North Central, specifically Kwara State, we're starting another operation. Without clarity about what is the objective of that operation, how long will that operation last, what budgetary allocation would support that operation. So sadly, I will still take us back to the National Counterterrorism Strategy. We don't seem to be implementing its provisions in the manner that it's spelled out in that document.
You said that our security system is federal and the crime is local. There's a gap, don't you think? How do you think we can rejig our security system So we are not reactive but proactive.
In simple terms, let's implement in a very clear manner the provisions of the various instruments that we have for addressing security. Our national security apparatus recognizes three major components. It recognizes these organizations that we've created, the military, the police, name them, about 29 primary ones, and then an additional 12 to 13 associated ones. So all in all, about 42 organizations. It also recognizes the instruments. These are the strategies, the policies. I gave the example of the National Counterterrorism Strategy, but there is also the Countering Violent Extremism instrument. There is also the defense policy and several other policies. All of these are very important. And then significantly too are the partnerships that we have. In your opening remarks, you did mention that we have partnerships with the US, we have partnerships with Turkey, we also have partnerships with several other countries. Remember that our foreign policy is domesticated or domiciled on what is called strategic autonomy. So that allows us to link up with partners across the world. And this is, in essence, why we're where we are. But like you rightly said, because the issues are local, I think one of the most important and significant attempts that this administration did was to go for local government autonomy. Now, for some reasons, those who are responsible for making political decisions are yet to, implement or achieve that local government autonomy. And because we've not achieved it, there is still a gap in terms of governance at the local level. I did mention that the root causes of terrorism are local. Youth unemployment, the issues of the various threat elements that affect our communities in terms of affecting agriculture, mining and its relationship with transnational crimes, and several other components, including our value system that seems to be depreciating by the day. All of these things are local. And so if we don't have a local government system in place that would address this, you would see why we're where we are at the moment. I must also mention the role of the state governments. Not all state governors are serious in terms of addressing those factors. We have a state in Nigeria where the poverty level, according to MBS, is 90%. That means for every 10 people you bring, 9 out of those 10 people are below the poverty level. Now, how in God's name do you expect, if terrorists go to the communities in that state and give out maybe 1,000 naira, that those residents of that community will not respond to the threat? Then we also need to talk about education. The out-of-school children today.
Mr. Adamo, because of our time, we just wanted to.
You kept me waiting for almost 30 minutes, so I guess you should.
Apologies.
Sorry, apologies.
We'll definitely continue in your line of thought. We have our correspondent, senior correspondent from Kwara State, Ibrahim Alege, who has been monitoring and giving us up-to-speed information regarding the incident that happened in Woro, in Kaiama local government in Kwara State. Ibrahim Alege, you've been monitoring, you've been following and giving us blow-by-blow accounts of what has been transpiring. The president actually given marching order to the Nigerian army to ensure that they restore peace to the locality. What more do we know about the reactions coming from the government locally and nationally?
Yes, the people of that community and, of course, indeed, Kwara State are happy about the statement of Mr. President for the immediate deployment of a battalion of soldiers to that particular environment. You need to be there to see what people in that locality are passing through. Virtually, the place is empty now because nobody can stay where there's no peace. So people have left that community, trying to find shelter in neighboring Kaiama. Kaiama is actually the local government headquarters, which is a bit bigger than what we have in Woro. So I was there all through the night, Wednesday to Thursday. We actually came back yesterday. Nobody slept. It's a sad incident, one must say, and the people are actually, very happy that the government is deploying this number of soldiers, and of course, they are hopeful that this will, seriously guarantee their safety. But to be honest, it's a sad incident in the state.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Ibrahim Alege, for monitoring this closely. I hope that you yourself are looking after yourself, because it's hard to watch the aftermath of these communities. It's clear that these terrorists are trying to, create a parallel governance and replace state authority. What do you think that's been like for the residents right now in Kaiama, to have their beliefs challenged and to be punished for not ideologically and socially complying to these very brave community, to these terrorists?
Yes, the bone of contention was that they rejected what they brought for them. They said they should not follow obey the Nigerian constitution. And these people said, no, our leaders, drafted this constitution, and the Quran commanded you to respect your leaders, and they are willing to respect their leaders. So these people do not want to hear that. So that's why they attacked them, killed them. And as I'm talking now, most people, the injured, are now in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. I understand that more than 50 of them have been taken to the teaching hospital. And just like reported, 750 were given mass burial. Some others have been transported to different locations, because some would want to bury their corpses in their own locality. And for some who are not of the Islamic faith, they may not want to bury them immediately. So that's why the number keeps rising. And I also need to report that when we went there on Wednesday to Thursday, of course, we still discovered some corpses, some burned, to ashes. Some were equally discovered. So it's a kind of terrible situation, but I think the people are resolute. They do want to accept this. So that was why they were, vigorously attacked.
Absolutely. TVC News reporter, senior reporter Ibrahim Alege, thank you so much. Keep close tabs on these for us. We'll definitely continue to get more information from you. We'll definitely go back to our guest, who has been making us understand what transpired in Kwara State and indeed in other parts of the country, Katsina, etc. Mr. Kabiru Adamo, people have been calling for militarization of most of these localities, the deployment of forest guards and all that. But others are of concern that when we militarize most of these localities, it will instill fear in the minds of the people. Rather, we should work on intelligence. What exactly would you recommend? Is it militarization, ensuring that there are military bases, or the presence of soldiers as against having credible intelligence, as the U.S. is also willing, and even Turkey willing to help in this regard?
Combination of all. I did mention at the beginning what our national security apparatus, consists of. It consists of about 29 primary organizations, and those our forefathers who created the constitution put in place.
Yeah. Mr. Kabiru, are you with us? All right.
Carry on, Mr. Kabiru.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I was saying that our strategy, our approach should combine a lot. It should combine the military and then the other security organizations as well. I'll give you an example. Part of the challenge is the porous borders that we have. It allows combatants to come in and support these groups. It also allows them to acquire weaponry from across the border. And several other components. So one major role that we need to see enhanced is the role of both the immigration and the customs, who have responsibility for border management, so that they can reduce or prevent the inflow of this, illicit materials, including weapons, that allow these, terrorists and other groups to continue to wreak havoc on communities. The role of organizations like the police, which is responsible for law enforcement and ensuring that offenders are arrested and punished, is also very important. So also is the role of our courts in ensuring that when the police present cases to them, they make sure that they deliver in good time justice. So it's not just a military approach, and I think this is part of the mistake, our concentration on the military. If a battalion, which consists of between 300 to 1,000 personnel, is deployed with the equipment to Kwara State, given the landmass in Kwara State, the battalion, frankly, will not make a huge difference if these other components that I mentioned are not strengthened. And added to that is the intelligence role that you played. Whether battalion, whether police, or even the immigration, they need intelligence to do their work. That fusion center We do have a fusion center currently active in Abuja. We must also see regional fusion centers. So each of the geopolitical regions should have some form of fusion centers, so that those fusion centers feed into the National Fusion Center here in Abuja. And all these organizations that I've mentioned should be able to have access to the information in that fusion center, so that we see a coordinated approach. I'm sure you've heard the phrase all of government and all of society approach. So this is what we should see. Haphazard approach is like just deploying the military or the battalion. It won't solve our...
All right, we spoke about borders being porous, and at some point I know that our president was really speaking about forest guards. What happened to that conversation? And then we've been talking about this strange doctrine that they were trying to speak to these people about. People are also saying if we can identify what they were telling the people, then we know where to start the fight from. What were they really telling them to do that they refused to do? And also talking about the borders, talking about having local vigilante as well. Because we say these things, but oftentimes it's difficult for us to implement it. I believe that if we have these forest guards that are just there in these local communities, it will be much difficult to have these people just barge into a community like that.
You're right, but you see, it's I don't want to go the general way, which is to respond in terms of knee-jerk responses. It must be a comprehensive approach that takes into consideration several things. You've spoken about borders. We have made recommendations on what to do to strengthen our border security management, which principally is the role of the Ministry of Interior. Apart from the customs, which is outside the Ministry of Interior, all the other organizations that have responsibility for border security are in the Ministry of Interior. So there must be a handshake between the immigration and the customs. Right now, there is a rivalry on who should lead border management components. I mean, the general conversation is the Ministry of Immigration, rather is the Immigration Service. But then, like I said, that argument still subsists. Now, with regards to the ungoverned spaces, the forested areas, the parks that exist. Now, for those ones, yes, the president has come out and the governors have agreed to the initiative of forest guards, but it's work in progress. A significant number of them have been trained. Each state is supposed to have, I think, about 2,000 plus, and most of the states have, done some components of both recruitment, and they are currently in the process of training. But you must also remember that the weaponry that these forest guards would have are not likely to be weaponry that can withstand the threat actors that we're discussing. When these threat actors come, they come with military-grade weapons. In some instances, weapons that they can stand face to face. The Kwara incident, it started from around 4:30 p.m. and continued until around 6 p.m. Daylight, which means they were ready with whatever security department would be deployed. They felt they could confront that. So that's something we need to take into consideration. And this is why disaggregated approaches will not help us. It must be a coordinated approach where our national powers, including the Air Force and land forces, the army, the several other components must come together to confront this. If we see a group, say 50 persons on a motorbike, it's not forest guards that will confront them. It must be a combination of all of these forces that I've mentioned. And once that location has been, addressed in terms of making sure that those bad guys are no longer in that location, we must make sure that we deploy adequate resources in that location so that tomorrow they won't come back to that location again, which is what we're seeing at the moment. So it must be a comprehensive approach. It's not about just the forest guards. It's not just about the police or the military. We must look at security from that layered approach with all the components that I have mentioned some of.
Okay, but from what we've seen, the terrorists are getting more brazen. They are getting more confident. Their body language says, we are the boss, no matter what you say. Imagine what you just told us now. The attack started at 4:30 p.m. and ended at about 6, and over 172 people were killed. That is really brazen. That gives the impression that they might do the same thing in another community. So what's your advice?
Let's wake up from our slumber and make sure we dominate. I mean, there are three things. Number one is to contain the situation that we have at the moment. How do we contain it? Let's go after these bad guys I can bet you that we've already mapped the locations where these bad guys are. Anyone within the security space who tells you he doesn't know where these bad guys are is lying. We know where they are, so let's go after them.
So if we know where they are, so why are they not going after them directly? Because now you're saying that anyone that says they don't know where they are is lying. This is a very bold statement you are making. So if they know where they are, what's happening? Why are they not going there?
You should call the coordinators of our national security and ask them. Unfortunately, I'm not a coordinator of the national security apparatus. You should call the national security advisor, the ministers of defense, minister of interior, minister of police affairs, and perhaps the presidency to ask them that question. But quote me in very clear terms, we know where these bad guys are. Maps have been created with exact pinpoints of where they are. And it would, if we start today, it would take us less than 3 months to clear this location. So that's number one. We must contain the threat elements. We must go after them in clear terms, contain them. After that, we must provide law enforcement across our locations. And this issue of state police that we're dragging, if we're not going to go with the state police issue, let's go back to the community policing issue. The community policing policies has already been developed, it's been implemented, constables have been recruited, the community policing committees have been created across these local governments that we have 774 of them. So if we're not ready for state policing, we should embolden this community policing mechanism so that at least all our locations, the 8,000 plus wards, we have some presence of police in those locations. After that, we must now evolve development strategies that would allow people to feel that they are part of the nation. These are the things that would reduce the current security challenges that we are. And then in conclusion, I must also say we need to hold our security agencies accountable where failures occur, like what happened in Kwara State, and over 170 people were killed. Someone should be held accountable. There is a police commissioner in that state. There are DPOs in those locations. There are military commands in those locations. There are all the other security organizations, the SSS, they have presence in that location. I mean, these things are not rocket science. Other countries do that. I can't see why we shouldn't be doing that in Nigeria.
Now, Mr. Adamu, a very interesting perspective that you're taking there. You know, we're so focused on catching in quotes, as you said, the bad guys, that we might not be holding the people who were tasked to protect those communities accountable. A great point. But I do want to say this. We now see that these terrorist groups are now hybrid in nature. They are part ideological, part criminal, they are part opportunistic. And some might argue that because of their hybrid nature, it might... traditional counterterrorism strategies may not suffice here. Now, we know that the new military command is spearheading Operation Savannah Shield. What will make this battalion different? What will make this battalion different in the sense that it doesn't just stabilize violence in the Kwara region, you know, temporarily, but they dismantle these terrorists at the root? What will make Operation Savannah Shield different from all the other boots that Kwara has seen on the ground?
So, I mean, interestingly, this point you made about the existence of hybrid, transnational terror groups. Right. If you pick the recently launched counterterrorism strategy, the roadmap 2025 to 2020, 2030, I think, in the preface, that recognition was made. It was that groups have becoming hybrid, and so the approach must be different. Now, the irony of government is that recognitions like this, you see them in writing. And again, this is not me saying it, it's there in that document. So which means the National Counterterrorism Center, embedded inside the Office of the National Security Advisor, is already advising government on the activities of these groups that have become hybrid. And so, in direct response to your question, what would make that battalion different if it is integrated as part of our national counterterrorism strategy and is not seen as a single unit that has been deployed to address that challenge? In other words, all the root causes of terrorism would also be addressed simultaneously while the battalion is doing its work. It must also be supported by the police. So the principle of take, hold, and rebuild, where the battalion would take and then hand over to the police that will provide civil security, deployment and capabilities within that location. And the role of the SSS, the role of the NIA, the role of all the other organizations, that battalion must be part of that integrated system. That's the only way it will be different. If we see it as a single unit that is there to solve a problem, then unfortunately that problem would remain unsolved.
All right, but quickly before we wrap up, I'm just talking about intelligence as well. How do you think we can use intelligence properly, in such a circumstance? Just quickly before we wrap up, our time is up.
Sadly, intelligence is being abused in Nigeria. People use intelligence, in a manner where they are not even sure. In the sense that from time to time, you just hear them mentioning intelligence without necessarily understanding what intelligence means. Intelligence must be actionable. It must be one that answers the imperatives of what, when, where, how, and who. So in that, to that extent, I think that I did speak about intelligence fusion centers. We already have one at the center, but we must now create regional fusion centers. And what fusion means is that the intelligence must be collected from different locations and different organizations. We have a lot of information in Nigeria. How do we form that information into intelligence is what matters. And private players like myself and several others are there, and we're willing to support in that process.
Thank you so much, Mr. Damu. We must thank you. Thank you for joining us this morning. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.